see that the security clearances, the people who signed the Hunter Biden laptop letter, those intelligence officials, had their security clearances revoked?
The report is that happened. That report is out there. Good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was so fundamentally dishonest. Early on, I give credit to Miranda Devine and the New York Post team for the way they covered that. They didn't focus in their reporting on all of the crazy, scandalous drug and hooker elements of that laptop, which made it, this is why it's significant, it made it impossible to be fake, right? Like, even the greatest deep fake imaginable could not have created the depth and scope of Hunter Biden's private life. They focused on the corruption. And I really do believe that if we had had an honest distribution of American stories at that point in time, Biden would have lost, because everything that they claimed about Trump, Biden's family had actually done. And my theory on this, and I don't know if you buy in on it, is that when Obama picked Hillary to be his successor and looked over his vice president, Biden basically thought his career was over. And he told his family, hey, it's time to make as much money as we can. And I don't even begrudge that decision, because Biden hadn't made a ton of money. He's in his late 70s, mid 70s, starting to retire. And he wants to take care of his family and finally cash in. A lot of guys go into lobbying, or they start businesses after they leave politics. And it felt to me like he made that choice. Then Hillary lost. And I don't think he foresaw that. And that opened the door for him to run again. And they were trying to cover up all the mess, because that's why the pardons go back to 2014, I think, because that's really kind of when Biden suddenly realized, hey, he thought his career was over, thought he would never be president. And from that point forward, they were working to try to cover all that up, because they never expected that he would be president. They thought, hey, VP, you're done. Let's go ahead and make some money. That's the linchpin of, I think, what happened, and why that pardon, which is a preemptive pardon, floats all the way back to 14. That's my theory on the entire decade there of what exactly went on.
Yeah. And that letter, I went back and looked at it. Every now and again, I'll go to look and see who signed it, because I'm just curious. I'm like, oh, did so-and-so sign it? And I go and look. Oh, no, they didn't. I just go and check every now and again. But I checked for some reason the other day, probably because I just saw that headline yesterday or the day before. So I went and looked. And what struck me this time, there's a couple big names in there, people who are directors of this and that intelligence services. But then when you say 51, it sounds like, but then you look at who signed it and you get down there on the list, a lot of people are just like kind of mid-level, like staffer, bureaucrat people, like somebody that just worked there, and it just added to the number. And they're just in there, and they're just like a 35-year-old person, whatever, they've been here for 12 years or whatever, but they signed it, and that's part of the 51.
That's right.
Okay. Anyway, it's just
it was really just designed to give Biden an opportunity in that debate to claim that it was all BS. And remember even the phrasing they used, all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Right. They didn't say it was Russian disinformation. They just said it had all the hallmarks. But those of us who actually looked into it at all knew it was real. And I think what we're seeing in general is a total repudiation of the 4 years of Biden. And I give Trump credit. I don't think those people should be getting national security briefings. If they're willing to put their name on something that is very likely untrue in a nakedly partisan political process, I don't want them having access to the most dangerous and important security concerns in the country, personally.
Yeah. For the most part, when the laptop hit, so I knew somebody that got it fairly early, and this person as well. I won't say they are though. And they had access. They went through they got to see the whole thing. And they told me that they were not going to talk about on air. They were not going to talk about any of that salacious stuff. They weren't going to put up those photos. They saw it. They saw all of that stuff that was personal stuff, and maybe personal, criminal, whatever, but they were going to focus on just the political side, what they were monetizing through connections and that side of things. And that said a lot about the person who was texting me this back then. And just like you said about Miranda Devine doing the same thing. They focused on
phenomenal work.
They focused on The real.
Yeah, and again, to me, it would have changed the outcome of the election. And remember, and we still don't know, but the key point here to me is the FBI knew it was real. They had had that laptop for nearly a year by the time it actually went public, and yet they were putting out talking points claiming that it was not real. So somebody ordered the code red inside of the FBI to try to take out Trump, and we still don't know officially who those guys were, right?
Yeah.
That to me is what's pretty scary, because this was, I think that the way they handled that swung the course of the election.
If you enjoyed that clip, watch the full episode here or another clip here.